I'm not muted. Wow. The open mic will start now and will be facilitated by Margaret O'Regan. Margaret, are you there?
I am indeed, and it'll be easy to facilitate. So far, I only have 4 names. So if there's anyone else that would like to, and we'd love everyone to participate, just put open mic in the chat and your name. Now I call them in the order in which I got them. Colm, you're first. Where is Colm? He's there.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm going to read a story. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Colm.
This is a Halloween story I wrote there last week. It's called Death Cometh Quickly. I should have known when I booked the severed archeries for the post-COVID celebration concert in our local hall that there would be violence. They seemed like a nice bunch of lads, turning up with COVID masks over their faces and carrying their instruments with polyethylene gloved hands. Very responsible of them, Mrs. Murphy of the church choir noted to me. We still need to be careful of coronavirus. But when they kept their faces covered through the rehearsals, I was wondering, were they a little too conservative? After all, it was October 31st, 2021, and Ireland had been classed COVID-free for at least a month. Mrs. Murphy and her husband arranged chairs around tables and began to put out titbits and party food. Scary sweets, gummy eyeballs, chocolate fingers, caramel fangs. All the teenagers and kids around were coming, and their parents, all sponsored by the World Health Organization. As I welcomed the band members of the Severed Archeries in, I noticed that a large red bus with blanked out windows had pulled up outside the park. It was the mobile blood bank, and some people were queuing up to donate. I saw the excited eyes on the lead guitarist's face as we passed it in on our way. For the life of me, I was sure I heard a cackle of joy from under his mask. They were a rock band of sorts, all I could get at short notice. The country was alive with parties celebrating the end of the pandemic. Yes, their manager had said in his strong Eastern European accent, all the boys are EU citizens. I assumed they were kosher, but then as I set up the drum kit for Gregor, the drummer, I could not help looking into his bag of tricks. Long knives and scimitars instead of drumsticks. I turned to face him. Those hollow dark sockets of eyes, his temples heavily coated in white bone-coloured makeup. Was that a smile under his skull-decorated mask or a grim snare? Punks or goths, I thought. The knives were probably part of the stage show. I decided not to broach the subject. When the lights went down and the kids started dancing, it was all seemed fantastic. They love those kind of songs, the Monster Shuffle, Thriller, Die in Your Arms Tonight. Not really gothic rock, I thought, but the Severed Archeries really got the crowd screaming. I turned to the bar for a moment's break and ordered a Bloody Mary. The gig was a great success, but stressful. As soon as I had taken my first sip, I heard a great howl emitted by the lead singer. I turned my head. The music had suddenly stopped. Guitars had been flung to the ground. The masks had been pulled off to reveal pencil-thin mouths with long canine fangs. The drummer had opened his kit bag and was throwing knives and machetes to the other members. The dance floor stood in abject silence. Some girls started screaming, "Vampires!" Everyone started running everywhere, heading for exits. The gang of 5 started to slowly approach from the makeshift stage, their long black trench coats open, revealing black suits and waistcoats, and ruffled white collars underneath. One of the band had already gotten hold of a 16-year-old girl and was grappling with her, pulling at her neck as she struggled to escape. He raised his arm and drove a carving knife through her chest. My Bloody Mary smashed to the ground into 1,000 pieces. My heart was pounding at 100 miles an hour. They will never get me to organise another event, I thought to myself. Then I suddenly had a flash of inspiration. I ran for the door, pushing away kids who were trying to escape. Within less than a minute, I was across the street and in the cab of the blood bank bus, pushing the driver aside and turning the key in the ignition. I revved her up and pulled her around, unfortunately knocking down one or two old fogies with my actions, but it could not be helped. I spun her and drove her full speed into the plasterboard thin rear wall of the local community hall. She smashed through easily and entered into the mayhem-filled dance floor, now full of smoke and rubble, as well as the blood-spattered bodies that lay around. It was terrifying. As the smoke cleared, I saw the bass guitarist with a 12-year-old boy in his arms, his Dracula teeth driven deep into the pale white neck of the young boy. Everywhere was carnage and death. I had no time to think. I jumped down from the cab and swung open the huge side doors of the bus. There, in the glaring light for all to see, was what I had hoped for. Bag upon bag of fresh blood, hanging off drip trolleys, just today dispatched from the veins of the local community, fresh, red and fine. The scattered band members all looked up. I saw the hypnotized eyes glaze over. Each one in turn dropped their victims to the ground. They began to move slowly, zombie-like, towards the blood-filled bags hanging onto the open trailer. They began, one by one, the five slowly jumped up and began to tear at the bags. Easy blood is always taken before having to work for it, even for vampires. When all the band members were in the bus, busy with their gruesome endeavours, I swung closed the heavy metal doors. Mrs. Murphy and her husband, now by my side helping, having suddenly twigged to my plan. Within seconds, we had locked the horrific crew safely away. Their banging soon subsided, as no doubt they became engrossed in a furious gluttony of the senses on the assembled blood drips within the caverns of the bus. At least no lives were being lost as a result of their demonic indulgences now. Things began to calm down on the outside as police and ambulances arrived to remove the dying and already dead. The numbers were not too bad, at 15 human losses. As it turned out, the band were flown over from Transylvania. Bona fide vampires, every one. Payrolled by none other than the World Health Organization to reinfect Ireland with COVID by a much speedier intravenous method. Trump was right, after all, about WHO and their devious ways. As for the community hall, we have rebuilt and are having a grand reopening Halloween concert this Saturday night, a year to the day after the terrible debacle. I booked a nice little local band called the Headless Leprechauns. No chance of me making the same mistake twice. By the way, Mrs. Murphy isn't on the organising committee this year, sticking to the church choir. I don't think the party food went down well last year.